This episode is brought to you by One World Empowered. Hey there, tired mama. Do you wish you could push a reset button on your energy? Like, do you want to keep up with those Energizer bunnies that are running around you all day? I know. I feel ya. Coffee can only do so much. Well, don't you worry. I've got you covered. Now just imagine a community of mamas who know the struggle and are working together to harness and reclaim their energy. We're talking about a true community of mamas who get it. Daily practices to jumpstart your days, accountability partners, group coaching calls to ground and recenter you throughout the 28 days. Does this sound like the exact dose of medicine you need in order to feel 100% again? If so, this program is exactly what you need if you want to be more present with your kiddos, if you think a new routine will help you maximize your time and you enjoy having an accountability partner to help you with developing that new routine and those new habits, if you'd like to increase your patience and energy all while reducing your stress and anxiety, and if you think it would be amazing to have an understanding community of mamas who get it and are on the same path towards healing. Mama, today is the day you choose you and level up. Come join our 28-day energetic reset for moms by visiting www.oneworldempowered.com/workwithme and click the Learn More option next to the Energetic Reset program, or just scroll down and click the link in my show notes below. I can't wait to meet you and witness you step into your full potential. See you there, Mama. You're listening to the Empowered to Heal podcast. I'm your host, Dena T, and I'm so excited to take you on a journey through stories of everyday experts as we share the ways we've harnessed the power inside us to improve the quality of our lives and the health of our minds. We're so excited to have you here with us and hope you feel inspired and empowered to heal. Hello, you beautiful souls. Thank you so much for joining us today. In today's episode, we are going to be interviewing a beautiful young mama named Annie Carpenter. She is a licensed clinical social worker, and I met her back in the day when I was in high school. Her younger sister and I were close friends, and since then, Annie has gone off to college and become a master's level social worker like I did, and she has had a sweet baby boy named Gray, and Gray is now 7 months old, and he is a beautiful pumpkin, and Annie is sharing the realities of stepping into motherhood and navigating postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, postpartum rage, and navigating being pregnant and birthing a child and raising an infant during a pandemic. I absolutely love how she speaks truth into the realities and the difficult nature of your hormones and your adjustment to a big change of having a baby and entering into this stage of life. As Annie shared her journey, I was having flashbacks of my son's infant stage and my experience stepping into motherhood, and I know that this episode will resonate with many of you as well. So get comfy and feel free to laugh with us and shed a few tears as you become inspired and empowered to heal. The majority of mothers in this world know the depths of postpartum emotional struggles, and so do I. As I suffered silently through postpartum anxiety, I was in the dark to the realities of this struggle. Nobody warned me. It was so different than what I heard about the baby blues and what I knew about postpartum depression. And I wish someone had enlightened me and normalized what I was going through. I wish the stigma of postpartum struggles was non-existent so that I felt safe and secure enough in telling somebody what was going on inside my head and my body during that difficult, overwhelming time. I aim to reduce the stigma around postpartum struggles, and in order to do that, I'm partnering with Peace of My Mind Consulting to bring you guys a free community online training. In honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, I want to be sure that we are talking about the realities and the full range of mental health struggles. And that includes the experiences that so many of us mamas have after we give birth to our babies. Did you know that 1 in 5 new moms experience postpartum anxiety? It's so extreme, yet it's not talked about at all. And the screening tools that are used by our doctor's offices are targeted around postpartum depression. A lot of the questions on those tools don't even begin to hit the surface around what we experience when we're experiencing postpartum anxiety. You guys are not going to want to miss this free training. We're going to unearth these struggles and talk about how we can treat them, not just formally, but also informally. I was not somebody who felt comfortable and confident in telling my doctor or any of the providers I worked with about how I was feeling. I didn't even want to tell my husband, and I didn't tell him for a long time. But there was things that I learned that helped me manage the symptoms of my anxiety until my postpartum anxiety no longer existed. And I want to be sure to share those things with you guys, as well as share formal ways that you can reach out for assistance or help during this time, and even how you can reach out for help in an anonymous manner if you feel more confident in doing so. I see you, mamas. You are not alone. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and we're going to talk about ways that you can get there. This training is for all you new mamas out there, anyone who's trying to get pregnant or who is expecting a baby. If you've experienced anxiety in your past and you're planning on having a family and you're wondering how that's going to impact you, and this training is for anybody who loves somebody who is pregnant, expecting, or wanting to get pregnant. You can subscribe through the link in my show notes and access to register for this free event. Hi there, Annie. Thank you so much for joining us on the Empowered to Heal podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you here. I've got to say, so we know each other from like when I was in high school. You were one of my best friends, older sisters. And I feel like through social media, I kind of have seen your journey. And you are also a new mother to your sweet baby boy, Gray. And
Yes.
he's 7 months old now, correct?
I can't even believe it.
I have really admired your authenticity and how you have shared what it's like to be a mom. And after giving birth to your baby and all of your dreams for your baby, experiencing that postpartum journey. And you've created an Instagram account to kind of showcase that and to create insight and resources and validation to the world. And I'm really eager to learn more about your story here today and help guide people who might also be on their postpartum journey or are reflecting back on their time after having their baby and what that was like for them because there's not a lot of conversation out there, I feel like, around the realities of once you have your baby, it's hard. There's a lot of emotions and hormones and fears and stressors, and your brain goes through this huge roller coaster of experiences that might depart drastically from how you normally are in your life. And you are a licensed clinical social worker. Um,
Yeah.
and you have the education, the insight, the counseling background, the working in a clinical framework with people who struggle with depression and anxiety and trauma and all of these things. And yet you yourself, right, went through this really hard journey after having Gray. And so I'm hoping
Yeah.
you can share with us what that was like and we can learn from you today.
Oh, thank you. It is funny because all the movies, it's like you have this baby and oh my gosh, oh, it's just rainbows and butterflies
Yeah.
and all the love and it's just not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really just not. At all. It's and also the media doesn't really always wanna show. I found that it can be hard. There was, like, a commercial for postpartum products that wanted to be, televised at the Super Bowl, I think last year, and it was cut because it showed an ugly side of postpartum. So the information just really isn't always out there, and it
Wow.
leaves a lot of new mothers feeling like, "This can't be normal."
Yeah.
When in
I would
fact, it's totally
agree.
normal. Yeah.
I would agree with that. I remember when I had my son, I went through such a hard time with postpartum anxiety, and
Mhm.
it was so lonely because I didn't even know postpartum anxiety existed. Like, I was like, I
Yep.
understand postpartum depression, but what is this crazy, anxious, like terrified feeling I'm feeling all the time? And
Yes,
it's normal.
yes.
So many
It's
moms have it.
so normal. There's also I didn't know about something called postpartum rage, as
Mm,
that's another actual diagnosis that you can have, and I feel like at times my diagnosis was postpartum depression, from the doctor, but me myself as a clinician would definitely still diagnose myself with having postpartum anxiety, and at moments, I definitely had that postpartum rage too, and it's really scary. It really is.
yeah, so tell us, what was that like for you? When did you realize, like, "Whoa, I'm struggling here"? Because if you're anything like me, the dots didn't connect super fast. Like
No, it did not. So for me, I feel like it kind of is at the beginning where, my whole life, all I ever wanted was to be a mom. I'm the oldest of a bunch of kids, and I always liked kids. When I was little, I babysat. I worked in the preschool. I always wanted to be a mom, and
Mm,
then I finally, I got married and we had the talk, and we started trying and trying and trying and trying and trying. And it took, I know that I'm very well aware that we are lucky that it only took like a year
mm,
for us to get pregnant. So, um, but when we did, I suffered a miscarriage. And then um,
mm,
I feel like even just going through that, it's like, oh, miscarriage, like whispered. And,
mm,
um, I heard things like, well, at least, you can get pregnant. A lot of just invalidating statements from people that really mean well, obviously. Um, but, not everybody really knows how to handle that, myself included. And I am very fortunate. We got pregnant right away with Gray.
mm,
Um, Honestly, like, kind of, I was like, well, let's just wait a little bit before trying. And wouldn't you know, I got pregnant. And, but I still feel like I really struggled with the loss of the first baby.
mm,
And throughout my pregnancy, especially at the beginning, I was super sick, but also, and this is very normal, um, I was worried constantly that I was going to lose this baby too.
mm,
And to the point where it was like, I was so anxious about everything. And I was very sick, but if I didn't throw up, 5 times today, and only threw up three, then that's got to be a bad sign. Or,
oh,
it was just so much anxiety. And then I got sick with the flu, and I was,
oh,
oh my gosh, I've honestly never been so sick in my life. And, I was so afraid because I had fevers, and I couldn't keep anything down. And, I even, my OBGYN was so wonderful. They let me in. This was before COVID, obviously. Let me into the office, sick as a dog, just so I could hear the heartbeat, just to reassure me. And
oh,
um, I know, and then finally I felt better, and I finally felt okay sharing that I was pregnant. Everything was healthy. We knew it was a boy, and then COVID hit. And
mm,
it was like within 2 weeks of me sharing that I was pregnant. And all of a sudden we're in this new, the anxiety of everything around, and we're afraid to go and even spend time with family. And
yeah,
I it was so bizarre. Like, here I am finally, pregnant, and I have the cute belly and I can go and wear all the cute clothes and I'm telling you, all I wear was leggings because nobody was gonna see me anyway. And I joke, but it's true. I spent more time researching how to get my hands on some Charmin than, you know, than going to I thought I would be cruising Target with my cute belly and nope.
Mm.
Um and also, my husband couldn't go to my doctor's appointments anymore. And all my doctor's appointments went to telehealth and I had to buy my own blood pressure monitor. And they would ask
Wow.
me at the appointments, like, so how is everything? Everything normal? Well, I don't know. This is my first pregnancy. Like, what is normal? I'm freaking out here,
Oh my gosh, that does not help the anxiety at all, like, trying to be your own
No,
doctor. You get some
no.
peace when a doctor, like, physically sees you, right, and puts their hands,
Yes.
like, listening to your heart and listening to your breath and your lungs and, like
And your baby's heart
Uh-huh.
and are they moving normal? I don't know. Are they,
Measuring your belly, like
yes, is it growing normal? All the things. And here I am, like in this total pandemic world, full of anxiety, trying to figure out if my pregnancy is normal.
oh
Um,
gosh.
and then I ended up with gestational diabetes and which I never saw coming in a million years. No, I tried to eat healthy. I tried to do all the things. Doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you right now, if it's something you're going through, you are not alone, and it doesn't matter
Mm.
what you do. You can't. Oh, it's just your body's doing it. But so now I had a medical condition on top of it, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so at least that means I'll be able to go into the doctor's office. No, um, just means
Wow.
I'm now charged with changing my entire diet and whatever. And I mean, I'll just say that my experience with that was difficult too. And they're trying to explain to me how to give myself insulin via Zoom and and how to maintain this diet and checking in on the portal and, "Oh, if you have any questions, just type them in." It's like, "Okay," and so that just made my anxiety even worse, and then
Yeah, and
my
learning about diabetes, right? Like that's a whole thing in and of itself. And to wonder how that affects
Mhm.
you and your baby at the same time and to not get swept up in the horror stories, that's a
Yes.
lot.
Yes, and if you Google it, obviously, you're gonna see about how this woman had a 14-pound baby or this one had this problem and now, and it's like and nobody's monitoring me. I felt as closely as I should have been or
Mhm.
something,
Mhm.
I don't know. And then also you're thinking to yourself, well, this can't, they're just saying like 2 weeks. They're just saying 2 more weeks. They're just saying, okay, another month. And then all of a sudden, my pregnancy is just about over. And I didn't get to have the baby shower. And I
Mm.
made it out to Target like twice. And we picked out all the nursery furniture online,
Mhm.
and I remember going at the very end, it was like when you have to go to the store just to get those last things that you just have to actually have and look at. And I was like wandering around Target and I'm like, okay, this is on my registry. Oh no, I don't like this one. I should have registered for this one. And how would I have known? I was online, and everything like that just manifested in anxiety for me. I
Mm.
picked the wrong bath seat. Oh my god, I picked the wrong this. I didn't get that.
Oh.
And I'm walking out of Target and I actually saw one of my great, great friends in the parking lot and we can't even like hug and she's like, "Oh my gosh, your belly," and that was all I wanted for my whole pregnancy and here it is at an end and none of my friends got to see me and I felt like shame almost like it was a secret pregnancy,
Oh,
like I
wow.
was like sent away for my pregnancy and now here I am, I'm going to have this baby and what's going to change here? Now my baby's going to be a secret. And, um, I'm so fortunate that my mom was able to. My mom's in Arizona and I'm in New York, and she was able to come out and had the financial means to stay in an Airbnb for 2 weeks quarantining.
Mm,
Before she came to my house because my doctor was like, she can't stay in a hotel, she would have to stay in an Airbnb completely isolated. And so I'm very fortunate that she was able to come and help me. But, I
yeah.
go in to deliver my baby who was healthy, and oh my gosh, I'm so lucky. And I remember as soon as he was out, I had this overwhelming feeling of emptiness.
Mm,
I can't even explain it. Just it's like more than just like my body feeling empty. It was like there's just nothing. And I I don't know if it was that because of my pregnancy, I and the miscarriage and everything, I just never let myself really connect with my baby um
mm,
before he was born. But they put him on my chest and I was just like, okay. I didn't have that overwhelming feeling of I'm so in love and this is the love of my life and oh my
mhm.
god, I'm complete. It was more just like I need sleep or
Yeah. And if you
um
if you think through, so you just shared with us so many big things that happened so fast, like starting with the difficulty getting pregnant, the miscarriage, and then I think this is complicated in a miscarriage and then getting pregnant right afterwards because it's
mhm.
difficult to balance all those emotions. It's not like you don't feel the grief anymore and you just feel happiness and like everything's fine and dandy in the world. Like there's this convoluted mixture inside you of realities that have hit. And
And
then
I still think about that baby
yeah.
very often and how old that baby would be.
Oh.
And because I had a friend that delivered a baby right about when that baby would have been due, and I compare all the time. And again, I know I'm so blessed, but that doesn't take away from the fact that I had that loss, and I'm
Mhm.
aware of that. And I did not have, I don't know if you can ever really properly grieve a
Mhm.
loss. You know, I don't everybody's different and everybody's handling of it is different.
Yeah.
I feel better having named that baby. So when I think about it, it has name,
Mm.
which I've heard, but yeah, I never let myself truly connect to Gray when I was pregnant with him.
And it makes so much sense that you were feeling that disconnection because the
Mhm.
entire world at that point in time was feeling a sense of disconnection. And on top of that, like on top of a global pandemic, like you you're pregnant and you're navigating grief and excitement and joy and confusion. And when I think of pregnancy, so I had a part of my pregnancy that um so at the beginning we were told that it was likely a tubal pregnancy and it
Mm,
was likely not going to be viable. And we were monitored very closely. And I was so anxious. I don't know. I think it was once I was like, I made it through 13 weeks. I was like, okay, like we're going to be okay. But that first trimester, in that week into my second trimester, I was in like almost a state of denial around this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to be real. And I kept my pregnancy a secret for 22 weeks at work. Like it was wintertime. I wore jackets. I kept that denial. And when I look back on it now, there's pieces of me where I'm like, I didn't connect with my son in those moments. I didn't connect with my body and honor my body in that moment. And when you
mhm.
cut yourself off to yourself like, in that
Yep.
way, it has some long-term effects. It truly, truly does. And so it
Yeah.
just makes so much sense to me that you experience that level of like of disconnected emptiness, grief, right?
Yeah, and I don't blame you for, putting up those walls because in some ways we really have to protect ourselves and everybody does it too. Like my husband, it's a kind of a joke now, but he was going through the same thing when I told him I was pregnant with Gray. He said, "Don't tell anybody."
Mm,
Like that, not like, "Oh my god," so he was feeling the same thing, the
yeah.
loss from before, like, "Oh my gosh, how are we going to, what if it happens again?"
Mm.
Um, and it's so hard. It really is, and we have to protect ourselves sometimes from how big it is emotionally too, I think.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely a defense mechanism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. So you had Gray and you were in the hospital. How did things start like shifting in your emotional energy after that? Or what was that like for you to try and have this baby that now solely relies on you for everything, everything, and you feel disconnected?
So no, it didn't get
Yeah.
it took a while and I can't even put my finger on when the shift was. Um, I wasn't um I wasn't married to the idea of breastfeeding, but he latched on naturally. And so now it was like
Mm.
another level of, oh my gosh, he needs me for everything.
Yeah.
And um and I I just remember feeling exhausted and it's when I look back at the whole hospital stay, I describe it only as disorienting.
Mm.
We couldn't leave the hospital room itself at all, so um it was weird just in that, but they and with COVID, they discharged us quicker than they discharged normally.
Mm.
But we were anxious to get home, and everything. But at the same time, it was like I, I just remember feeling just worn out already and
Mm.
overwhelmed. And, um, you know, I knew how to change a baby's diaper. I knew how to burp a baby. I knew how to um, care the mechanics of caring for a baby.
Mhm.
But I was still beyond overwhelmed and breastfeeding. Hadn't really seen too many successful breastfeeding stories, so I assumed, well, that's not going to work out. And here it was working out for me, but like,
Mm.
I was just kind of waiting for that to go, wrong,
Yeah.
and the anxiety of it and just the overwhelming sense of just the emptiness. In hindsight, I should have recognized at that point that I wasn't okay. I feel like I went into the hospital not okay. Um, I was just not okay.
Mm.
And so leaving the hospital, coming home, and my mom was here, and I joked that she was like the paparazzi. There are a million pictures. And for me now, she's going to hear this and be like, I told you so. Um, I'm glad there are only because, mom, because I'm documenting my journey and the good, the bad, and the ugly. But when I look at the pictures, all I see is like, it's just written all over my face.
Mm.
Um, and nobody knew I was internalizing it. Um, I kept I talk about often that I kept like overhearing my mom or my husband talking to somebody else on the phone or each other and oh, Annie's just such a natural. Annie's such a natural when I was really freaking out inside. Um
Mm.
and it wasn't even just the the typical like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna break him," or it was it was like a ticker tape at the bottom of the screen, just a constant running inner dialogue of it was literally, what did I do and how do I undo this? Oh my God, what did I do? How do I undo this? Um,
Oh.
of and just panic that this was my life now and I made the wrong choice um and this baby deserves more than me.
Mm.
Um I talked to one of my very close friends who I know and I knew at the time struggled when she had her babies and she said to me, I told her that I was thinking that. And she said, I get it. I, at the time, thought about I need to drop my baby off at the fire station. And you think, like, oh my God, but for me, it was like, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Um, and I could tell her that this was how I was feeling, because I knew that she had gone through challenges. I didn't know that it was postpartum depression or anxiety or what, but I knew how much she struggled when she had her babies, but I couldn't tell my mom or my husband who was here, that I was having such a hard time. And
Mm.
like, I would just sit there and cry and cry and cry. And, um, and then it spiraled into anxiety. And, um, I've learned that it's sleep deprivation is the most common, um, way that this starts for so many women. And I knew I liked my sleep. I knew that sleep was going to be so hard for me to give up when I had my baby. So I researched all the sleep methods and I took all the classes and I chose one and I was like, this one's the best. And this is what I'm going to do. And she talked about a bedtime routine, creating and establishing a bedtime routine. Well, I can do that. I love a good routine in any in anything in my life. I like routine. So bedtime routine, great. And he'll learn about the bedtime routine and he'll go to bed and he'll sleep and I'll sleep and life will be just glorious. Um and it was like a bath. He still does. He loves his bath. He was one of those babies that as soon as the water touched his little head in the sink, he was like the so it was
Mhm.
natural that this was going to be part of the routine. um and I started to find myself having, like, I can only describe it as a witching hour, but for myself, he never had a witching hour. Everybody was so like, oh, the baby's gonna have a witching hour. Nope, it was me. um from
Oh.
as soon as like night started even becoming a topic of conversation, I started to have debilitating panic. What was the night going to be like? Was I going to sleep tonight? Oh my God, what if he doesn't sleep tonight? How am I going to make sure that I get rest?
Oh.
And it all centered a lot around this bedtime routine. I have to start the bedtime routine at this time. And it can go until this and then this, and if any little thing, interrupts it or it doesn't go according to plan, then I'm setting myself up for a horrible night and it's
Mm.
going to be awful. And the thing is, he was a great sleeper. He did sleep
Oh.
great. He, even at the beginning, he was like clockwork every 3 hours, and I would nurse him and he'd go right back to sleep. And, and it was me at just making it into such a big deal. And I couldn't even understand why.
Mm.
And even in the middle of the night when he would wake up, I loved those moments with him, and that's probably about where the shift happened, somewhere in there where I realized I loved those quiet moments in the middle of the night with him, and that was probably around the 2-week mark of, okay, this like, I like him,
Oh,
you know?
yeah. Mhm.
I guess I shouldn't drop him off at the fire station, but I still had the, and again, I can't put like my finger on when that shift happened,
Mhm.
but it did happen. But I was still left with the anxiety piece and the overwhelming, "He doesn't deserve me." How could how is this how am I here, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and the feelings of he'd be better off without me, I'm sure of it.
Mm.
Um, I should just go away. And um, but it was all just the anxiety piece just telling me things. And
Yeah, and I like that you pointed out a few minutes ago about, like, the shame associated to acknowledging it outside of yourself. Like, it is
mhm,
so difficult, and I think it's stigma, right? Like, we stigmatize depression, we stigmatize
mhm,
anxiety, we stigmatize having negative thoughts, and they're all normal things that every single person in this world has moments of experiencing, and it's so hard to give ourselves grace and permission to feel that and not associate it to shame or with shame, like and that's
yes,
it's interesting, I don't think you're alone in your husband not even knowing what you were going through or not wanting to tell your mom, and those I think of, like, when you're a woman, like, typically, your partner and your mother feel like the things you wanna hold on to the tightest when you just give birth, like, those are the
yes.
things that you're like you feel connected and you can relate around and safe around, and to feel shame of not wanting them to even know is normal, and it's so hard to overcome that.
They thought I was doing such a great job, and I didn't wanna let them down. I didn't
Uh-huh.
want anybody to know, that I was having these thoughts, and I was so afraid too, like, if I said something to the wrong person, they're gonna agree with me, like, "Oh, your baby doesn't deserve you," you know?
Mm.
And, and then they my mom left, when he was 3 weeks old, and it was just me, and I was over overwhelmed with, you know, the everything of it. When I was
Yeah.
pregnant, my brother was, for lack of a better word, stuck here, for the pandemic. And, he just doted on me, and my husband doted on me. I was this big pregnant lady in July in a pandemic, and my mom was here, and I took care of the baby and she took care of me. And then when she left and my brother had left and it was my husband went back to work, upstairs, but still.
Yeah.
Um, and I had to get my own water and I had to figure out dinner. And she said to me, she said, "You're gonna feel um you're gonna feel strong, you're gonna feel empowered," and to a certain degree I did. And I had this like, oh, I'm so strong. I'm this big woman mama and I carry my baby on my chest and he naps while I vacuum but at the same time it was still went back to the anxiety, and it was every single thing. It was so crippling. It
Mm.
was so just layered in every single thing I was doing. And again, going back to the pictures, and I've got such a big smile on my face, and I can remember clearly what I'm thinking.
Yes.
And I just told myself, well, it's okay because my dad was coming and my stepmom,
Oh.
they were coming soon. And they were going to stay for a month because I didn't even mention this. On top of everything, I was starting a new job. Um,
Mm.
and I had to go back to work when he was going to be 8 weeks old. So I didn't have childcare set up because my childcare plans fell through. And so my dad and my stepmom, they kindly agreed to come out and stay here for a month, and watch him while I got back to work and took care of everything. And so I was like, okay, well then they'll come and they'll help me and it'll be okay. I just got to get through. And then they came and it was wonderful. And I started to feel like, okay, I got this. And now at this point I was so in love with my baby.
Mm.
Um but still with anxiety, but I would say it was definitely better. So I was like, okay, so maybe it was just the baby blues. Everybody talks about the baby blues. That's all it was. But then my parents left, and we went back to our routines, and um here I am again. And when they left, it was I didn't have the help. I didn't for myself, but also I think maybe on some level of validation, or I don't even know what it was, but as soon as they left, I immediately went back into this dark hole.
Mm.
And my husband and I kind of just stopped communicating, and we had been really great communicators forever. Largely on my part because I communicate feelings for a living. But I couldn't get out of my own head to even communicate everything. And the anxiety started to manifest in a way that was like I would start to ask him to do something simple, can you change his diaper? And and then it was like, oh, he needs to put him in a different outfit. I'll just do it myself, rather than just taking a second to be like, can you put him in the blue outfit? It was like, it would just, never mind. And I would just take care of it myself. And it
Oh.
wore me down. And then, even when my husband did want to help, and I know he did, I I couldn't. As soon as he would do it, in my mind, I was like, he's not doing it right. He's not holding him right. He's not, and it went back to it. And it's so hard because when you go back to work, your days become the mornings and go, 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 getting out the door, and then nighttime routine, which was already so hard for me. Um, was basically picking up my baby from the babysitter right smack dab in my witching hour that never seemed to go
Oh.
away. And so all of the time spent basically with my family, my husband and my baby was right there in anxiety land for me, for
Yeah,
lack of
the
a better way
worst
to put
time of
it.
the day, right? Where you're like,
Yes.
"It's crunch time, it's gotta be perfect, or I'm gonna lose my sleep." Like
And now I have to wake up and go to work. And I can't just
Mhm.
nap during the day. I have to
Oh.
be a productive member of society. And I'm a social worker, and I have to pretend to, like I have any idea of how to help other people with, their depression. And then I remember sitting at work realizing it dawned on me, that it was literally a day in October right after my family left, and I was sitting at work, and I just started crying and crying and crying and
Mm.
crying, and I couldn't stop crying, and I said to myself, I "This is postpartum depression. This
Mm.
is postpartum anxiety. Um, I can't talk myself out of this anymore." And I had been using all of the treatment modalities, all of my coping strategies. I had, to a point where I didn't even realize I had been talking myself out of it so much that that was exhausting me. Um, all of the different, let's reframe this negative thought, and just everything was just, I just couldn't do it anymore. And that's when it dawned on me that this is a bigger problem I have here. And even though I am a clinician, I I still am struggling. And it's not
Yes.
fair. For a second, it's not fair to me. It's not even that it's not fair to my clients. It's not fair to me to be struggling with this. That obviously that statement took a lot of my own therapy to get to,
Oh my goodness, I
but
was just gonna say, like, holy smokes. So I battled with, like, acknowledging it, and when I did acknowledge
Mhm.
it, I was like, "Nope, like, this is
Yes.
I am strong, I am competent, I will figure this out, I don't need help." I remember going to the follow-up appointments with the, like, mom doc that I was at, and they'd give you the screening for postpartum depression, and I was like, "I know how to answer all of these questions," like, and I
Yes.
closed it all out so that it did not need to be addressed by anybody outside of myself, and lived in the anxiety because I struggled with the anxiety piece of it for so over a year, like, so
Oh
long,
my
all by myself,
god,
and I
I'm
was like,
so
"Nope."
sorry. And those questionnaires, there has to be a different screening tool for these, and I don't know what it is necessarily, but you're right. I know how to answer those questions, and I would look at those questions, and I was given that questionnaire by my son's pediatrician. I was given that questionnaire by
Yes.
my own OBGYN, and I had, to see the OBGYN a couple of times just in follow-ups, which is more than typical postpartum women go to see their OBGYN.
Mhm.
Um, and every single time I'd look at those questions, I'd be like, oh, yeah, but I'm not going to write that,
Right?
And I think to myself, it was all over my face. And I did go to one appointment one time, and my doctor said, I remember saying to my doctor, I was telling her a story, and I don't remember what the story was about, but in it, I said, and then I just feel like I just can't pull it together. And she heard that, and she said to me, "Annie, are you okay?" And I said, "Oh God, no, I'm fine. I was, talking about, whatever it is." And when she said it in my mind, like it was like that little Jiminy Cricket, like screaming, like, "You're not okay, you're not okay." But it was
Yeah.
like, nope, I've got to be okay. I have to be okay. So by the time it was 3 months postpartum, but in reality, it was even before Gray was born that I was truly not okay. But
Yeah.
in that day at work, I did think to myself, this is what it is, and I have to address it. And I called my doctor right then and there. I
Wow.
didn't um I didn't let myself, once I kind of realized this is a bigger problem, I didn't let myself thankfully dwindle in it.
Yeah.
Um, but what came was after that, they got right in that day, and I went in and I just sat there with the midwife, and I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried, and I couldn't stop crying. And I left, and I didn't even tell my husband that I was going to the doctor or anything, and I got home, and he was kind of just like, where were you? And I said, I went to see the doctor. They put me on some medicine for postpartum depression. And he was kind of just like, okay. I don't
Oh.
expect him to necessarily know like what to say. And I told some of my family members, and same thing. Nobody knows what to say to somebody. I hope you get better, like
Yeah.
I like, sorry. But I told that friend, and she said to me, "Congrats on taking care of yourself at Gray."
Mm.
And I stared at that text, and I was just like, "What?" And then now obviously, but like I know what she meant, but at the time I was just like, "Congrats on taking care of yourself," and then and I can't even put into words how I felt other than just like, what? And then I stared at it and stared at it, stared at it. And I knew what she meant, but I still could not wrap my head around the fact that I don't know, did I let myself get postpartum depression? I couldn't talk
Mm.
myself out of this.
Oh, the
Um,
guilt,
the
yeah.
guilt of every single part of it. And even just in admitting that this was a thing that I was going through only in some ways made it worse. Like, Grace still doesn't, like, I don't deserve this baby. He deserves
Mm.
better. So when she said, "Congrats on taking care of yourself and Gray," it was like, mm, okay. um, and
Yeah.
I had a therapist all along, thankfully. I as a therapist love therapy. Um but I mentioned all of this to my therapist, and she pointed out that this is me taking care of my baby. That's that's a big thing that I'm doing, and taking care of myself is taking care of my baby, because you can't take care of somebody else if you're not okay. And
Yeah.
and it's the same stuff I tell people all day long, is that you have to take care of yourself before you can help somebody else. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't possibly give every single thing to somebody else when you have nothing for yourself.
Mm.
And and I'm not going to say it got better right away, because it truly, truly didn't. The journey that I've been on has been so many different levels and different layers of taking care of myself, figuring out how I can how to take care of, and not just myself as a person, myself as a wife, myself as a mother,
Mhm.
um, which is a new role, and how does this piece fit into this big puzzle of myself. um and a lot of it did start with communication, and communicating, going back to being able to communicate with my husband first and foremost. This is what I need, and finding like the reconnect, there, because we had a huge disconnect, which was feeding the resentment, and
Yeah.
and then there was a lot of the postpartum rage, which is like so scary when you're just sitting there and all of a sudden you're just like so angry, and like it's, oh, I can't even put it into like, I can't even put into words how scary those feelings can be. And in the moment, figure out how I need to communicate this with my partner, that this is how I'm feeling. And so working through all of that was a journey
Yeah. I'm
in
sitting here
itself.
thinking about, like, the complexity of being a clinician on top of that. So if you're
Yes.
in the helping profession, for some silly reason, we believe that our ability to help others means that we have the ability to help ourselves.
Yep.
And it's just not true. Like, if a
It's
doctor
not.
gets hurt and they need help, they're not going to be in their right mind to always help themselves, right? Like, they go see another doctor. And
Yes.
we I don't we draw this parallel in our brain around asking for help means that we're not good at helping, or we should be competent and confident in helping ourselves because we're competent and confident in helping other people. And none
It's
of it
true.
is true. Like, none of this is real.
It's I always say, either I'm the best for my therapist, I'm either the best client or I'm the worst client, because she will say something and I know where she's going with
Yeah.
this. And sometimes I'll be like, yeah, okay, I already tried that. So probably I'm the worst. But but not to say that she doesn't point out. I've been working with her for a really long time, and I love her. And she points out really great things, and she can call me out on stuff. But that feeling of, when it does go to, I know where you're going with this, it's either sometimes I tried it, or sometimes like, you know what, I just don't want to try that.
Mhm.
I just don't want to. And it came a lot with, well, have you talked to your husband about it? I just don't want to. I just don't want to. um and which leads me to in a weird way, my Instagram page, um because some of the resources out there are, they can be so they can just flame the fire of anxiety.
Yes.
When you
Yeah, don't
Google
Google something you're
something
anxious about, like
or, WebMD it,
Yeah.
or something. And it started out that way with Instagram. Um, but then you find like little things that make you think. And I recently actually listened to um, a different podcast, and this one psychiatrist or psychologist, I forget, I feel bad, but she has this wonderful page, and she talked about the resentment piece, and it was like tangible tips for how to help. And it was like, aha. That's what I need sometimes, is just like, this is what you do, this is how you do it.
Mhm.
And um and finding that little nugget of information helped me. And you know, on top of it, as you're sitting there in this very lonely world of resentment of, I can't even ask my husband to help me here. I can't tell my mom I feel this way. It's so lonely in the middle of the night, especially when you are struggling with how to get your baby to bed and you're online,
Mhm.
because what else do you do?
Mhm.
And it's like, well, your baby's not sleeping because of this. This is what you did wrong. This is how you should do, blah, blah, blah. And it made me feel like such a failure as a mom, such a failure as a
Mm.
wife, such a failure as every single possible thing I could ever try to be, until sometimes I would come across something helpful. And um and I one of the first helpful things was like those easy ones, mom hacks, did you know that the top of the onesies are like that weird folded way because they go down the shoulders when there's a blowout, so that you don't have to go up like to get it all in your hair, like the easy mom hacks, or the hacks for the clogged ducts. Oh my
Oh
god,
my goodness,
I can't even
yes.
go down in
So
that.
painful.
But like all those little hacks, and then it like blossomed into this other thing where I would find, as I sat there thinking about how I'm the worst mom possible because my baby's not sleeping, to this page, which, it's not necessarily like tips that you need sometimes. Sometimes you just need education. And for me, it was the education that this is normal. Oh my God, this is normal.
Mm.
What I'm going through right now is normal. On all the different pieces, I just don't want to communicate with my husband piece. They call it maternal gatekeeping, I've found, which is why I couldn't just ask him to change the diaper and change his clothes because, of my own anxiety. That's normal. Here's what you do. Um, so, just all the different parts of that normalize what I'm going through,
Mm.
and that yes, I'm sitting in this room completely alone in the dark, rocking my baby to bed, praying that he'll finally go to sleep. But in the world, in the scheme of motherhood, this is normal, because you don't see that. You really
Yeah.
don't see that out there. You don't. They say like, "Oh, your baby's not going to sleep," but the first question people ask you is, "How's the baby
Oh
sleeping?"
my goodness.
Well, not so great. Well, did you try XYZ? No, yes, I tried XYZ. I tried all of those things, and this baby's still not sleeping. And, or he was sleeping, but I wasn't sleeping because of my anxiety. You know, um, it's just all these different things that are so unbelievably normal, and they're out there.
Mm.
And if you and I quickly realized, like, it was like a light turned on, like, oh my God, this is normal. And I'm not failing as a mom.
Aw.
I'm not failing as a wife because I can't figure out how to communicate this to my husband. And that was me realizing this is a new role. I have never been a mom before. He's never been a dad before. And we are trying to figure out how to communicate, how to not even just communicate, but how to exist in these new roles. And there needs to be some kind of grace, some kind of growing pains, the
Yes.
period for this. And that was honestly my therapist pointing out to me that, well, when were the other times in your relationships you fought? Oh, when we moved in together. We fought, because that was new. We fought when we were getting engaged. We fought when we were getting married, like all these things that every single time that there was a shift in our roles, guess what? Relationships are changing, and sometimes you have to fight it out a little bit and figure out your stride. And that's normal. And and all of this is normal. And as soon
Mm,
as I realized that, I started to feel so much better.
mm,
I truly did. I was able to get out of my head thinking that because this one sleep method that I was trying wasn't working for me, um, there's other ones, because guess what? This is normal,
yes. And it's
and
so hard when you're talking about, like, digging into information and education. There's
yeah.
so much competing information. Like, I remember, like, the no co-sleeping or yes co-sleeping, or your baby's not
Mhm.
sleeping through the night, put rice cereal in their bedtime bottle versus, "No, that's
Yes.
gonna give them diabetes." Like, there's
Oh
these
my
this, like,
gosh. Yes.
drastic, like, if you sleep with your baby, you'll kill them. Like, if you it's like, "Oh my gosh, what do I do?" But when you listen to your heart and your soul, like, what you wanna do instinctually, so many other people are doing those things, even if it feels like it's shamed by the doctors or by I don't know, like, I think of co-sleeping. We
It's such a
still
hot button,
it is. We still like, Emery will come into our bed halfway through the night, and he's got a tent that he likes to sleep in next to our bed. Like, he's still in our room. He's never slept a night in his own room by himself, like, ever. But it's normal. Like, little
It's
people
normal,
yeah,
yes.
like, he grew inside my body. He wants to stay connected to me, like, and he's still like, we are safety, we are comfort, we are the conditions he needs to fall asleep, right? And
Right.
take that away, and it's going to be hard. It's normal for us to be together, like
Even just reading something that said, because I'm gonna go ahead and say it out there, that the trick for me too was bed sharing.
yes.
Um, and it's so shameful, it is. And let me tell you, first and foremost, I worked at a hospital. I know there are risks with bed sharing. And
Yeah.
I'm going to put this out there that there is information on safe bed sharing. And if you cannot do it safely, you shouldn't do it.
Mhm.
Um, but that education is not out there at all. So that's where I feel issues come into play, is that people have to search and search and search for ways to do things, you know, that are just survival. But like,
Yes.
if you had in the caveman days, if they had
Yeah.
put their baby in another room, what would have happened to that baby? That baby would have died
Yeah.
alone in another room. So, there's like an evolutionary aspect to parenthood, but it's also a societal aspect. Why do we want our babies to be so independent? Why are we constantly striving for independence for an infant? You
Mhm.
know, um,
Mhm.
it doesn't make sense. And for me, as soon as I started letting go of the shoulds, your baby should be sleeping through the night, should be sleeping 12 hours through the night. Well, I don't sleep 12 hours through the night. I get up 100 times. I need to pee. I need to drink
Yeah.
some water, but my baby should. And the thing that really rings true for me is that I'm very well aware that this works so well for some families. And for those families, I have nothing but gratefulness that you found something that works for you. The issue for me is the families like me that
Mhm.
couldn't couldn't bring myself to that level. Does that mean that my baby's not working? Does that mean that I'm not working? That means
No.
none of that.
Mm.
there's other information out there that just needs to be found and then normalized. So this works for this family, great. This works for this family, great. This works for you, great. No two people are the same. No two
Yeah.
babies are the same. No two parents and nothing is the same. You can have 12 kids, and I'm going to tell you right now that all 12 of those kids are different.
Mhm.
Why should we expect that this is going to work for everybody? And when you get onto Google or when you get onto Instagram and you see all of these, this is what's going to work for you, and you're so sleep deprived and you're feeling so just shitty as a person, as a parent, and you've got postpartum depression, you've got postpartum anxiety, you've got all of these issues that are just so heavy on you, and you see that this is the miracle. Here it is. Buy this swaddle,
Oh
buy this
gosh.
class, take this class. Well, I'm here to tell you that swaddle didn't work for me. It might work for you, and that's great. It didn't work for me. That
And
class,
that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything that it
it
didn't work for
doesn't.
you and it worked
But
for some. Don't read
let
into
me
it.
tell you, I did. I did. I did. It was gonna work for me, and I waited. I checked the shipping, and like where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I can't get through this, And then finally it came, and guess what? He hated it.
Oh.
But it's like, it's just that's okay. That's normal too. It worked for
Yeah.
this baby. That's normal. It didn't work
And
for my baby. That's normal too.
And this experience of yours and realization of yours led you to create an Instagram account to
Mhm.
tailor information and normalization validation for moms, for parents who need to see something succinct and be honored where they're at, and also have resources at the tip of their fingers. So, can you tell us a little bit about your social working mama Instagram account?
And my recovery from my depression and anxiety, I've always liked to write, and I find it very cathartic. And I thought, as I look back at the pictures, I thought a couple different things. I thought, looking at them, this is, oh my God, this is what I'm thinking at the time. And also, this is what I needed at the time.
Mm,
So I batted it around for a little bit, and then I was just kind of like, I'll put it out there, and I'll just see if somebody out there can kind of benefit from my own experience in that, um, if the normalization of motherhood, and also the resources, because some of the best part about being a social worker for myself is I love connecting people with resources that are
mm,
helpful to them. um, So, I kind of just put it out there. And Dina, I started getting messages from people that were like, thank you. And
mm,
not even just people I know, but like um things like, oh my God, I feel seen. Or this is I thought I was alone. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like there isn't that I've found," and I've been through a lot of things on Instagram, a lot of information out there of just like, this is what postpartum depression looks like. Does this look like you? If
mm,
so, this is what you should do. This is what you can do. Um, because for myself, again, back to those questionnaires, I know how to answer those questionnaires, and I know as a clinician how to talk myself out of this. Maybe had somebody held a mirror up to my life, would I have seen it earlier? Would I have
mm.
addressed it earlier? I don't know. It's
Yeah.
worth a shot. If
And
somebody,
I think knowing that there's more options than you think you have, right? Like
yeah.
for me, going to my doctor and telling them that I have anxiety, in my brain, they're going to say, "Here, take this pill." And I'm going to say, "No." Like I don't want to, right? I want to try other things. So, I think
Mhm.
just even having awareness of like there are options, and what your brain thinks might happen might not be the only option that's given to you.
It's totally true, and I think that's one of the best parts about being a social worker is that we are trained in so many different techniques and modalities and different things that we
Mhm.
can do. Um, for myself, I opted for medication, and it's not the first time I've been on medication in my life. So I've found the benefit of it. For you, it might be different.
Mhm.
But finding something, and isn't that so true with anything in life is trial and error. A lot of times we are just throwing something at the wall and seeing if it sticks.
Yeah.
Um, but, if the biggest thing is if you are struggling, it's okay. It is okay to not be okay and
Mhm.
to take care of yourself. And that is a lesson that I myself had to learn um, in the I feel the worst possible time of new motherhood um, is having to learn that I had to take care of myself before I could take care of this sweet little baby.
Mhm.
And such an important lesson to learn. Um, and my hope is that somebody out there will see what I went through and be helped by it, even if it's them going through postpartum depression or anxiety. you know I hope that they find help if it's not postpartum depression anxiety and they're just looking for those really cool mom hacks. Here they are.
Yeah.
Or just normalizing, because the sleep is the most loneliest part, I feel, of motherhood.
Yeah.
Um he was such a great sleeper, and he hit that 4-month sleep regression, and it broke me. And I I write about it, but I don't know if you remember that movie, The American Tale, with that little mouse that comes,
Oh
from
my
Russia or
goodness,
whatever.
yes.
And I literally, there's the rocking chair in Gray's room, and there's a window right there, and I look up at it and I think of that song, and even just thinking to myself, somewhere out there, there is another mother going through exactly what I'm
Mm.
going through right now.
Mhm.
Helps me.
Mm.
Even just that is helpful to me, knowing that I'm not alone in this. In the moments that are the loneliest, I'm not
Yes.
alone in this.
And so
And
that's the essence of this Instagram account, right? Like this in
yeah.
the posts that you put on there, they're so like authentically done. Like I your latest post that you put on there about like your baby being constipated and like I you instinctually knew I'm going to bring you into the bathtub. And then you're like, "Don't poop, don't poop, don't poop." Cuz I'm in the bathtub with you. But those are, like, real things that we all go through at some point in time, and giving
It's true.
space for that, you're like, "Oh, thank God." Like or even just going in the bath with your baby or showering with your baby or, like, there's all of these little things that, I don't know, you just normalize it so well and you do it so
Thank you.
authentically.
I try to do, there is a lot of humor, I think, with motherhood, with new motherhood. Um, and if you can't laugh at it, you're just gonna cry. But that's kind of my philosophy with life anyways, trying so hard to find, the humor in the biggest garbage, dump trucks of situations. But at the same time, like, it it's my message is usually trust your gut, take care of yourself, trust your gut, take care of yourself.
Mm.
And if you need a little guidance, here you go. Or if you just need to laugh about the fact that here I am potentially about to swim in my baby's poop. And oh my gosh, I hope he poops, but oh my god, I hope he doesn't poop. It's true, it's there. But yeah, there is I try really hard to just put out kind of what I'm going through because that is motherhood. And, um, everybody I talked to went through something
Yes.
similar,
Yes. Well, I'm going to put the link to your Instagram account in the show notes of this. So if anybody wants to find you and follow you and find a place to laugh and feel normal and accepted and validated and also have resources, Social Working Mama is the place to go.
Yeah, thank you. And then I also have the link in my bio is to one of those Linktree websites, and it's help for if you do need to find a social worker.
Mm,
Um, so you can find one, you can search like your area. Um, and again, I think there's a lot of different kinds of therapists out there, but true to what you said, if sometimes if you're just looking for a different way of um, a different way to treat something going on, social workers are really good options. Obviously, I am a social worker, so I'm going to plug social workers. But I'll throw it out there. My therapist is not a social worker. um, but yeah, so if you are searching for help, then that's a quick way to some find
Perfect. I'll
help.
put that link in the show notes as well so people can easily find it. And
Okay.
Annie, thank you so much for sharing your story and providing us with so much insight. You truly are an authentic human being with such a beautiful heart. So thank you for joining
Thank
us
you.
today.
Thank you.
Thank you so, so much for tuning in today. I hope you are feeling inspired and empowered in your own healing journey. I know that many of you listening might be reflecting on your own stories that you may feel called to share. If so, please reach out to me at Dena T at empowertoheal.com. That's DENAT at empower2heal.com. Or drop me a message through my Instagram handle at empower2heal. I would love to connect with you and learn about your journeys so that we can hopefully continue to spread these powerful life lessons on empowering ourselves to heal. My contacts will also be linked in the show notes below so that you can easily find me. We are so eager to start a movement in showcasing the many ways we can heal. And you can be part of this movement too by capturing images and tagging them #empower2heal on Instagram. We look forward to seeing all the ways that you are empowered to heal. I love you, beautiful souls, and thank you so, so much. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and review.